Good evening, everybody. Happy Friday. I hope you guys are all just as excited for the weekend as I am. And tonight, being Friday, is usually our patch night. And we have a pretty awesome patch for Hangar Control tonight. We're going to be talking about new tools that have been added, a couple of new quality of life features that have been added specifically for DCS World, as well as other enhancements that are on the way. So stay tuned because there's quite a lot to talk about. And hopefully you'll consider giving Hangar Control a try after this video. Stick around. One app designed to do it all. Hangar Control brings everything together. Control bindings, hardware configuration, mod and profile management, application launching, add-ons, config files, and more, all managed from a single application. Mods Hangar goes beyond just mods and add-ons. It manages profiles, config files, text files, backups, snapshots, and helps keep your community folders clean and organized. Application Hangar launches your entire Sim stack with a single click. Your Stream Decks are fully controlled through the Hangar Control plugin, while all of your other Stream Deck plugins remain active and available. Built by a simmer for simmers, Hangar Control adds new features and hardware support every week based on community feedback. It's a one-time purchase with lifetime updates, no subscriptions. You can try it for free for 5 days with no restrictions at overkillsimulations.com. Just create an account, head to your account page, download the latest version, and get started. And if you're looking for in-depth Microsoft Flight Simulator aircraft tutorials, check out my Patreon site. Links to Hangar Control and Patreon are down in the description below. All right, folks, so let's get right into this. So first off, let's talk about a real quick change for Hangar Control and DCS World. Up here in the marquee, DCS World will now show the aircraft. You do not need to update anything in the plugin, merely just as long as you're on the latest version of Hangar Control, it will show your aircraft. It will also switch between aircraft, and you can also now use the bind aircraft. What bind aircraft does is, let's say I'm in the UH-1 Huey, I've created my profile and control bindings for the UH-1 Huey. I then select bind aircraft. When the simulator is started, you want to be in the cockpit. You want to be in the aircraft you wish to bind it to. It needs to say UH-1 or whatever aircraft you're wanting up here. Then you hit bind aircraft. And what will happen is when you switch profiles, or switch aircraft, for example, if I switch from the Huey to the Corsair and both are bound, the profile will automatically switch to the Corsair profile and then vice versa back to the Huey and whatever corresponding aircraft. So you don't, when you switch aircraft in DCS, you no longer have to change the profile manually as long as you have bound it to the aircraft. If you need to remove a binding, you simply right click and you can see it says no aircraft are currently bound, but you simply just would click remove Huey, remove whatever it may be that's bound to that aircraft. Okay, so that's the biggest change here. We've also expanded the DCS World library. So if we come in here and and this is any of the menus, of course, we now have a significantly larger library. There's still a few aircraft that are out there, but I've got most of them in. Of course, if you run into any issues, if there are any commands that are missing that you feel are supposed to be there, please join the Discord down below. There's a link to my Discord down below. Join that, go to the DCS World Bugs and Issues section, create a forum for the particular aircraft and let me know what controls are missing and I will try to figure them out. As there are a ton of aircraft here, obviously it gets rather hard to test every single command, so if you run into any issues, be sure to let me know and I will address them very quickly. Okay, so that covers the DCS World portion. Okay, a quick heads up, had to throw this one in because I forgot to mention at the beginning of this. I want to make it very clear that SimVR Optimizer is not dependent on Hangar Control. This is an application that I got permission to add to Hangar Control as a resource, but it is not dependent on Hangar Control. You can find it in the GitHub link that I will leave down in the description below. It is also available on my Discord in the SimVR Optimizer channel. Again, a link to my Discord is down in the description below of all of my videos. And so there are multiple sources that you can locate the SimVR Optimizer. It is not specific to Hangar Control. I was merely given permission to add it to it. So just another easy one-stop shop, which is what Hangar Control is all about. So I want to make that very clear. Now let's get into what it is. Next, let's talk about a couple of tools that are now built into Hangar Control. The first one is SimVR Optimizer. This is a tool that was actually initially developed by the VR flight sim guy Shark and Goldfinger, three amazing folks who took their time to do a ton of testing to figure out what services and background noise within inside of the PC were causing some issues with virtual reality. Most importantly, stutters. Do not mistake this for FPS. Micro stutters are that little weird jittering that it does maybe when you're looking at the terrain out the window, especially in DCS World. This is a very common one. If you're looking forward, usually we get a nice, clean, crisp image. But like, for example, if you're traveling high speed and you're looking down, you would notice almost a weird, well, stutter. That is what SimVR Optimizer really does. However, these folks were kind enough to let me participate, and I created a UI for it. It was a batch file and added a few tweaks of my own. I want to make it very clear that none of these things were just arbitrary settings that were just added. These have gone through extensive testing. Shark especially did an amazing job testing the you-know-what out of it with every single build that I handed him. After we built the UI, he went through every process, was able to give me bug feedback reports, and of course, again, that goes for you guys as well. If you notice any issues with it, please let me know and I'll be happy to address them as well. So if we launch SimVR Optimizer, let me close this window. Let's get Hangar Control out of the way for the time being. Here is the SimVR UI now. So first you have the simulators that are currently installed for my machine that are supported with this particular product. If it's not detected, you can certainly hit rescan and it should find any of the missing simulators that are on your application. Configure app controls. You have a couple of different options here now. First off, yours truly added a content creator mode. The standard optimization would kill certain processes that may be needed for streaming or recording, Discord, Chrome, Edge, Game DVR, widget service, as well as some of the things that OBS relies on. So I created an enable content creator mode, which will keep all of those services running to make sure that content creation is still preserved while trying to optimize the stuttering. You can set your default flight simulators, your VR runtime, the runtime that your VR runtime uses. So for example, Pimax Play, you would usually just leave as is. But let's say you were selecting SteamVR, you might want to use SteamVR versus Pimax XR, etc. Okay, in our case, we're going to keep it at Pimax Play. And then you have the standard optimization, which kills these apps on startup. And then the apps will restart when you are done and they resume where they were left off. You can add custom applications to kill and restart when it is done. If you have a specific app that you know needs to be shut down that you run throughout your day-to-day, but can impact VR experience negatively. And by the way, this actually isn't restricted to virtual reality. A lot of these features and experiences will benefit or see benefits in 2D as well. But continuing on, if you go to the optimization settings, we get even further on. And this is one of the other tweaks that I added. The standard optimization should work for most users. But if you're really looking for a deep CPU overhead, if you're really trying to open up as much CPU resource as possible, you can go into the aggressive mode and it will shut all these extra ones down as well. Again, it is very important to remember that when the application is closed, it will automatically restart everything, okay? So that's very, very important to remember. So let's come in here. I am going to hit Save Changes, Save Configuration. There we go. And then now, for example, if I were to launch Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, there's the prep stage. It walks you through the process. And again, this has been heavily tested. There's our Pimax Play. And then in a second here, we're going to see the simulator launch. There it is. Now I'm actually going to go ahead and close it because I don't want it to run right now. We're going to close this as well. And if I need to cancel and revert, I can hit cancel and it restores everything. You can see it's canceling, reverting changes. All changes have been reverted. Return to the main menu. Okay, very, very fantastic application. And if you run into any issues, of course, you can pull the log here and see where any errors are. If you ever run into a problem and you can't figure it out, don't hesitate to grab this log, copy it out to a text file if you need to, and send it over to me or any of these other guys. Okay, so next up, we do have an application that is Hangar Control dependent. This is one that I developed all on my own. You guys have seen a brief tidbit of this before, and that is the DCS Export Manager is now available. So launching the DCS Export Manager, again, let's just kick that off so we can do that. This is where things get fun. So first off, if we go to monitor setup, okay, you guys are actually going to see this live. If we go also here to display settings, you guys can see it currently matches. Now, Windows, especially after any kind of Windows update or restart of your computer, Windows likes to do what Microsoft likes to do, the same thing that we're seeing in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. What is their favorite thing to do? It's to tell you what you want. So even though we may change all these displays and things like that, Windows still decides, nope, that's not really where you want it. I'm going to put these back where you really do want them because you don't know what you want. So what we can do here now is first, let's take these. These are the main instrument panels, or MIP, for the Top Gun MIP from WinWing. These are our MFDs, basically. So the first thing we're going to do is we can identify the monitors. Click Identify, and it puts a number on each monitor. So let me see where these are currently oriented. All right, so they are in a 3-5-4 configuration. So first, let's do this. We're going to take these here, and this is where I want them. 3, 5, and 4 is where I want them first. Now, we're going to go ahead and just apply all positions. Yes. Okay. And they did move, in fact. And again, we can verify that with the display settings. Boom, we got that taken care of. But now we have another issue that Windows also did, and they changed the orientation of my monitors. God forbid that I changed them to portrait, and again, Windows said, nope, you don't want portrait, you want landscape. No, I want portrait. So we're going to go to portrait, apply change, and we're going to do this for each one of these. Okay, and now just bring those in like so. And I can already see on my screens that they have moved accordingly. So once again, apply all positions. And I just verified, sorry, I had to peek around the corner to see them. And I just verified they are all in the correct sequence. So now what you can do here is you can come down and hit Save Layout. And this now saves it. So now if I take these, for example, and I do one of these like this, or Windows decides to screw with my stuff, I can apply all positions. What I can do is I can come down here, find whatever profile I wanted, say you have more than one, and I can hit Load, hit Yes, and boom, everything goes right back to the way it was. The other thing you can do is lock the layout. While it is locked, Windows will not be able to move them. Okay, if Windows tries to move them, it will automatically move them back. Okay, so that's the other really cool part about this. Now, the next thing that you're going to want to do is, if you want, you can change the names. I don't worry about that personally, but you can add a friendly name which would replace this with a friendly name. But DCS World likes to work in full canvas of resolution, okay? And you have to do a custom Lua file in order to exclude a monitor. This is the monitor that you and I are currently talking on, or working on, if you would say. This is my flight sim monitor, where DCS World cockpit is, my combat cockpit, and again, you guys already know what these are. So I don't want this monitor to be a part of the DCS World operation, because what will happen is, if you have screens up on a different monitor that you don't want included with this, then DCS World will take control of it, essentially black it out. So for example, if I had a web browser open, maybe, you know, one of Chuck's great tutorial guides on this monitor, as soon as DCS started, it would wipe it out. So what we want to do is we want to hit exclude from DCS, and again, save that layout. Okay. So we exclude that from DCS. I do recommend, as best as you can, that you don't mix and match things. For example, like this monitor here, I would recommend not excluding from DCS. If you had a monitor in this kind of setup, like you wanted this one, but you didn't want this one, I've had mixed results with that. And that has to do with the way that Lua works, and it works the way it builds a canvas. I've had mixed results. Usually it works, but I have seen instances where it has not. The other thing that I want to get right into next is the brightness. Notice that on certain monitors, you cannot control the brightness. That is because Windows is overwriting that. I am still working on that because there's multiple methods of brightness control, okay, is to understand. Like these USB devices, these are USB displays. For the most part, they should work. However, you may run into some that do not. So keep that in mind, okay? For the most part, again, they should, but you may run into situations where they don't. All right, so let's do this. I'm actually going to apply changes. Leave that, apply changes, and apply changes. You want to apply changes, save your layout again. Yep, okay, and we're good. So it really just depends on the monitor whether or not they will respond to the brightness. Of course, again, please join the Discord. If you run into issues, you're experiencing certain things, let me know and I'll do my best to resolve it. Brightness gets a little tricky though. There's some caveats to operating with brightness. Now, for DCS, the next thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you set your directory. Now it should find it automatically, but verify that it is correct. You just need the saved games and the DCS top level directory. That is it. Don't go any further than that. Okay, we hit save. And now this option here, what this does is it gives you the ability to pull DCS. This is my primary monitor, as you can see, but this is the window like we were just talking that I want DCS to work on. In normal operation today, in the day-to-day, you have to set whatever you want as your main view in DCS needs to be your primary monitor, or like I was saying, you have to include this in your canvas and then you can draw the canvas out. For those of you who have messed with it before, you probably already know what I'm talking about. Either way, it's a pain in the ass. So what I have done is if you launch DCS World and then launch this application, for the first 60 seconds this application is operating, it will automatically pull DCS to this window. And we'll talk about why in a minute here. We'll get there when we get to the aircraft export section. But after that 60 seconds expires, let's say you got up, you go to the bathroom, or you haven't launched DCS, you launched this first. This was already running because you can actually launch it with Windows. You can start it minimized if you're just using it strictly to control the damn window position and you're tired of Windows doing what Windows does and, like we just talked about, telling you what you want. Then what you can do is once you launch DCS, it's probably going to launch on your primary window. You can simply click pull DCS to window, and whatever we have set up in the aircraft configs as your main view, it will grab it and yank it on over there. Doesn't matter if you're in VR or 2D, it will do it on both terms. Okay, it will drag it to the window that you want it to be on. So, and then it only does it once. You only have to worry about it once. Never has an issue again. The other thing is I have found that worked 9 out of 10 times. This is a DCS issue, but 90% of the time I've seen it work is if something got disconnected or a USB reset, and DCS will sometimes grab all of your windows and throw them onto the primary display whenever it trips out. I yanked it back over and it put everything right back where they belonged again. So that was kind of cool. But again, experience is varied on that, and that's a DCS issue. There isn't much I can do about that. But again, 90% success rate easily. So now let's get into the big part that everybody's waiting for. I'm just kidding. One more thing. So as we talked about down here, start with Windows. Start minimized, minimize to tray, close to tray, restore layout on start. So again, if we click this, and like we just saw at the beginning of this video, we did a Windows restart. There was a patch day, Windows updated, it moved all my monitors. By clicking this, when I launch the application, it will automatically take this profile, whatever was last profile, and restore it. Okay? So kind of a neat feature there too. So now let's go to the big one that everyone's waiting for. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, let's actually walk through the process. So I've reset the screens now, so you understand you cannot test these live, okay? Anyway, so now let's walk through how to actually set it all up. First, it's important to remember there are multiple aircraft that share the same displays, okay? F18, F16, A10C all share left MFCD, right MFCD. All three of them share those three. Okay. Same thing with, actually, sorry, the AH-64 Apache as well. The AV-8B Harrier as well. The F-15E Strike Eagle as well. They all share those same three. The right MFCD is also shared again by the M2000 Mirage. Okay. I will make sure to have all these shared displays listed in the documentation. But keep that in mind. So when you create that, you need to be thinking about the other aircraft too. If you need any of those displays on something different for a different aircraft, you will need to create a different export Lua. Okay. Now, later on, I will be looking into adding an ability to segment those out much more similar to what Helios does. But I think for most users, this will solve the problem. The trick to it is that in order to do what Helios does is we would have to edit the actual core files and rename those displays. That's how Helios typically handles it. The problem is after a DCS update, it's very likely you would have to repatch those once again. So I am aware of that. I am aware it is possible. It just requires a bit more. And right now we're just sort of keeping this as is. Okay, so the next thing that I want us to do, so we're going to still start with the F-18C Hornet. And again, the documentation does clarify, if you guys go into the documentation section, it does clarify what items share what, right? So you can also create a profile, right? So I'm actually going to clear this one out, and I'm going to create my own profile, and we'll call this, I don't know, DCS Winwing triple. Sure, that works for me. There we go. Yay. So there we go. Next thing you want to do is you want to set your main view. This is your main window. When you're flying around, looking out the window, finding your bandits, finding your targets, staring at the ground, watching the taxi cross the road as you slam into it on landing, this is the monitor that you're looking at. So in our case, it's our monitor 2, 3840 by 2160. That's our big 4K monitor. Okay, so we're going to use that one. And then now is where we assign our AMPCDs, our MFDs, etc. So we're going to do a left DDI, and we're going to choose the monitor that we wanted to drop it in on. In our case, what did we say? 354, I think is what the lineup is. Let's double check that. 354, yes, it is. So coming back in here, oops. Back to the F-18, FDDI, target monitor. We're going to start with number 3. So there's a couple ways you can do this. You can grab these and you can drag them and move them as you wish. Okay, and you can overlap. For example, if you're doing like a big touch screen or something like that and you want both of them on here, you can drop them both onto the same monitor. Okay, just keep in mind your resolution limitations. All right, so here's what we're going to do. In our case, I'm going to actually make this 765 because I'm counting for the bezel, the slight bezeling on the side. Okay, but you usually want them on a square, right? So 1024, remember that the first number in your resolution is your width, the second one is the height. So you usually want to start with the width, and you usually want it to be damn close, if not on the edge of your total width available. So we're going to put that right about there. That's it. Assign export. That's all it is. It closes to let you know the process is complete. If you want to look at it again, just swap out and back into it, and all that information is saved. Right DDI, we're going to do the same damn thing. So we said 354, which means 4 is on the right. We're going to grab these down, lock them in here, lock them in here. In most cases, honestly, just typing it in is going to be the fastest. Boom, and then drag it up. Again, assign export. And finally, the AMPCD is going to be on number 5. And again, we're just going to do 765. 765. And if you need minor tweaking, the arrows will allow you to tweak it one number at a time. Okay. And that's that. And I'm going to hit save export. Oh, now it didn't take that because I didn't hit assign export. So let's come back in here. We're going to do that one again. That was my fault. 354. Again, 765. 765. Oh, I hit numlock. Gosh darn it. You knock it off. Dude, stop it. There. Goodness gracious. It has been a very long week. I am tired. So there we go. We're going to hit assign export now. There we go. So 3, 4, 5. Always make sure that you see the monitors there. That's why that information is there. Now if we hit save, saved 3 exports to DCS Wing Triple. And next thing you would do is you would come up here and simply generate the Lua. Now the first thing, generated Lua files with DCS World Triple, aircraft 1, total viewports 3, tells you where it's put it. This will write to the config monitor setup and scripts. Your existing Lua will not be overwritten, only tagged as a line touched. The DCS options Lua, this is where your monitor configuration file is set. When you add one of these, for those of you who are doing this for the first time, when you first load up DCS World and you go into the settings view, or even from the launcher now, you will see under monitor on the launcher, it actually has, I think it says monitor 1 by default. What you will see the next time you launch it after doing this is you will see whatever profile name you created, and that's a good thing. That's what you want. All right, so then we'll hit yes. And again, Lua files generated successfully, options changed, blah, 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 yada, yada, and you can always reset DCS to default from here as well. So that is it. And then what we do is we can go to our scripts folder, if you guys are interested in seeing it, or not our scripts folder. But we can come in here, go to our config, monitor setup, there she is. And notice it's in the saved games folder. And if we take a peek at it, the viewport, there's the total width involved. I selected the wrong damn monitor. I must not have saved it. Oh, we went back into it. I know why. So let's fix that real quick. So what happened here is I must not have saved the primary viewport. So let's check that. Let's go back in here. Let's generate that Lua again. Oops. There. Now it worked. So if you ever see that, it just means that I didn't save the export before swapping the monitor. Okay, so it didn't take the monitor swap. And that's okay. It happens. But there we go. So that's what we wanted. We want our total width of 3840 by 2160. Okay, that's for our primary view. Notice the resolution is 3842 by 3183 because that's going to be your 2162 plus the 768 or 765 resolution that's required. Okay, so again, from here now, you would go into DCS World, and if you needed any tweaking, you would come back in here, give you whatever tweaks that you need, move it up and down, move it to the left a little bit, hit save again, generate your Lua again, restart DCS and test again. I cannot stress enough, that is a requirement. There is nothing I can do to get around that. You cannot live test these because, again, the Lua file is only loaded when DCS starts. And never loaded again. Even swapping aircraft does not reload the Lua. The Lua is loaded and stored at start. And again, remember, F-18, F-16, A-10C, Apache, the Harrier, F-15E, and the Mirage 2000 for the right MFCD all share these 3 displays. So, like, setting this up, I should now have full functionality on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 aircraft. Keep in mind this Apache is a little bit different because it's a much larger display in the real aircraft. So the Apache gets a little tricky. I'm not going to deny that one because, like, for example, on the MFDs, you have 5 buttons on your other aircraft. I believe on the AH-64, it's either 6 or 8 buttons that's going up the side of it. So it's a completely different display design. So you may run into some goofy issues when it comes to the Apache, and you may have to make a dedicated profile for it for now. Again, I am working on that. It just requires a whole different bag of worms, and I didn't want to hold up the entire release because of that. So anyways, that's going to sum up today's release, guys. I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope you really like this new tool. Yes, it's still got some ironing out to do, and I promise we'll get that taken care of. But anyway, as always, guys, please join the Discord. Let me know what you guys think of the software. Your opinions really do matter to me. And I want to make it right. I want to make it good for you guys. I want to make it worth every dime that you spend on my product, and I hope you guys are excited to try it out. As always, folks, stay safe and healthy. I'll see you in the next one.